ghost stories.
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man.
Throughout human history, people have reported seeing dark, shadowy, human-like figures stalking from afar.
Something forcefully took Dennis Martin off that hill, and nobody will talk about it.
Every fifth call I go on, I end up running across a set of stairs.
Hello?
Have you checked the children?
By the end of the war, the Americans started to realize that the Germans had fantastic technology.
In 1989, Al Bielek came forward to reveal his participation in the astonishing Philadelphia experiment, and that he had survived time warping.
And I've said it many times, folks, we are at war. Those who are managing it and controlling the people while it happens are those who are masquerading as government.
When you look at the map, could we be looking at the remnants of the memories of ancient worldwide civilization?
The grand architecture. Who built all this?
Ladies and gentlemen, just a word of warning. If any of you are not convinced that you have a tingler of your own, the next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Davey Crocko. Welcome back to the channel. This is Spooky Sunday, episode 9. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone's ready for a very chill stream where we can just hang out and have a little fun. I see Glitchmod is here. I see Elle is here. I think I saw Fada Kings, Andy Random Edits, Modus, everyone fighting over who's here first. What's up, Warfist? We're all here together. Technically, I was here first, so we don't need to fight over who was here first. But what is going on, everybody? I am very glad to be here. I had to do this live because I actually had to work today. What's up, One Step Too Far? Very good to see you. He's actually been to Antarctica. Ooh, he can tell us the inner secrets. There is a lot of mystery around Antarctica. It won the poll this week, so we're going to have to dive into it. I'm sure I will not get to everything, as everyone has their own theories around it, but we will play some cool clips. We will tell some cool tales. Now, this isn't exactly spooky if you really think about it in the grand scheme of things. But this show overall is for the fun and entertaining conspiracy stuff that we like. Overall, it's just a fun place for us to hang out. We're not getting scientific with it. So without further ado, this is episode number 9 of Spooky Sunday. Now, I'm not going to be able to really engage with the chat as I go through some of the videos, but I will do my best to answer questions at the end. Glitchmod already asking, are you going to talk about the deserts? We will get to a lot of different topics about going inside of Antarctica, Admiral Byrd. We will talk about Nazi UFOs and fighters that encountered people. We'll talk about lost civilizations. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything. I have clips from Truthstream Media, Richie from Boston, bunch of other channels, Beyond Creepy. There's actually been some missing people from Antarctica. I found a couple cool stories you guys might like about that topic. But overall, it's the whole continent, I should say, not a country, has a era of mystique around it. It's a big, mysterious place. We're always told we're not allowed to enter it, yet every single government seems to occupy it. They say it's basically cordoned off for scientific research. Now, people tried to explore this place in the early 1400s and early 1500s. There were Russian expeditions. There were ancient civilizations that tried to figure out what exactly this place was. Some people think the Earth is flat and it surrounds us all. So we're going to get into a little bit of everything about the topic. So I hope you guys are here to chill out and enjoy. And why are so many nations wanting a piece of Antarctica? Other places it's very easy to map out. There's people there, we've researched them for a long time, and they tell the public about what they find. Now, Antarctica is not a country. It has no government, it's got no indigenous population. Instead, the entire continent, they say, is set aside for a scientific preserve. Now, they had the Antarctic Treaty, which came about in 1961. They have military there, even though they tell everybody else that military activity is banned. There's a lot of prospecting going on there. We get a lot of minerals, a lot of natural elements from there. And there's a lot of controversy and conspiracy around this place. So I figured I'd start with a little history about it, and then we can get right into the Admiral Byrd stuff, which kind of sets us up for everything else. So like I said, there's been a lot of different maps made from the early days of the 1500s. Some people go by the Perry-Reese map, which is... I'll show you that in 1 second. Now, this is a map from 1513. It showed Antarctica centuries before it was technically discovered, but without any ice caps around it. So this was late in 1929. Gustav Deismann, a German theologian, was working in Istanbul at the Topkapi Palace Library while cataloging antiques he found from a gazelle skin parchment and a stack of discarded items. So this is how he comes across this map. This parchment had a map drawn on it, and Deismann was amazed to see that it appeared to be the outline of South America. So he rescued the parchment, which is now known as the Piri-Reis map, Pirireis. The map he studied had been drawn and signed in 1513 by a Turkish cartographer named Muhyiddin Piri, also known as Piri-Reis. In addition to being a cartographer, Reis served in the Turkish Navy, for which he held the rank of admiral. He stated that he used 20 different maps and charts as his sources for this, 8 of them that were these other maps that he had basically scrawled on from time to time, but he used all these different sources to come up with this main one that he called the Piri-Reis map. 4 were from Portuguese maps, 1 was Arabic, and 1 was actually drawn by Christopher Columbus. Now, this simple piece of preserved gazelle skin has been the basis of, just a lot of controversy. People are saying, oh, is this thing a hoax? Is this something that somebody made up? Did somebody take all that time back then to actually etch out the outline of Antarctica and show how it actually was? Well, of course, they're going to tell us that it's fake. But we have a lot of evidence to show that this is real. Not only does it show Antarctica, but the continent is drawn as a landmass as it would have appeared before it was covered with ice, which they say happened 6,000 years ago. The controversy was precipitated when Professor Charles Hadgood published in 1965 his theory about Antarctica in the Book of Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings. Hapgood, based at the University of New Hampshire, had studied the Piri Reis map with his students and found several things that they could not explain. Not only there the issue of Antarctica without its ice cap, but they noticed that the map was drawn using a Mercator projection, a methodology not used in European cartographers until the late 16th century. So institutions are trying to debunk it. People that want to tell you that the history is the way they wrote it are trying to debunk it. But we have a map from 1513 showing Antarctica without its ice cap. And we're going to have the story from Admiral Byrd about when he went to the South Pole and what he encountered. So we'll have to decide for ourselves, is Antarctica what they've always told us, thousands and thousands of years of ice, or is it something completely different? Is there a lost civilization that was underneath the ice? Why are they keeping everybody from being there? Why are only governments the only ones allowed to be there? We will answer these questions. Now, these are just some pictures of the map. Now, they're saying since he used a projection, he couldn't possibly have made this map. But here it is right in front of us. You can see the South America outline right in the side of this. This kind of gives you a good aspect of what's going on here. You see South America is outlined perfectly right here. Now, they say the jury is still out on the question of whether the Piri Reis map shows Antarctica or not. But we do know that in 1513, this man on a animal skin drew out this whole map of Antarctica. Now, a lot of other people had their own depictions at the time of this map. I will show you another one right here. This is the Orbis Terravim, and you see Antarctica basically encapsulates the whole bottom of the world. So it is a bigger landmass than all of the other countries combined in this map. Now, Antarctica is a huge landmass, but let's just be honest with each other here. The only things we know about Antarctica is what they tell us in our history books. So are we to believe them, or are we to do our own research? Another very odd anomaly about Antarctica is the satellite imagery. Anytime you will see it from space, you will see a huge hole in the middle of the South Pole. You will see this blocked out on Google Maps. We need to know what that is, and Admiral Byrd had a very good explanation for what that was. So we're going to get into his story very early, as I think it's one of the main ones that everybody needs to know. No matter what kind of satellite imagery you get, it could be weather imagery, it could be satellite imagery from space, it could be Google Map imagery. It shows a convex at the North Pole and the South Pole. These are known as energy centers. Now, I don't know if anyone subscribes to a hollow earth theory, but that is the theory that most people go with when you see a hole the size of that at the South Pole. And Admiral Byrd, who was a very respected admiral of our Navy, who did multiple expeditions to there, wasn't called crazy until he told his hollow earth story. So I see about 150 people have shown up so far. It's very good to see everybody. We're going to start off with a video from TrueStream Media called The Hidden Secrets of Antarctica Revealed. So there's a lot of documents in this. It's about a 40-minute video. I'll interrupt it here and there to give some commentary over it. But like we do here, we play long-form clips, videos, a lot of people that have done research in the past that'll help us get a good idea of what we're looking at. See a lot of people in the chat saying they've seen the Glitch has seen that documentary. Oh, it's a great one. And we also will have raw footage of what happened at Operation High Jump from Admiral Byrd. So let me just make sure I have everything pulled up and ready for you guys. I'm pretty sure I do. So this is the real footage of Admiral Byrd. So the United States Navy actually released this footage. I assumed Glitchmod would know a lot about this, because he's always talking about Navy stuff. So I figured he might know a little bit about this topic, which is very cool. So I'm trying to find one video to start you guys off with, and then we will get right to the Truthstream Media one. Modus said he subbed to Truthstream Media. Oh, it's a great channel. I every channel that I'm going to pull up. So what I'm going to do from now on, and have been doing, after I do the live stream or the premiere of Spooky Sunday, the next day on Discord, I'm going to put all these sources from the video, the Spooky Sunday videos. So if anybody wants to go back and rewatch something, or if they missed something, I'll make a folder that'll basically say episode 9, episode 10, and in there you'll have the list of all your sources. There's a lot of channels out there that just rip people's material, pass it off as their own. We might know who I'm talking about. We don't like to do that here. We like to give full credit to everybody that's putting in the hard work. Glitch says, great documentary. Well, we're going to watch most of it, because if people haven't seen it, it really kind of lays out everything for Antarctica. And if you have saw it, well, I apologize then. Maybe you've already seen a lot about Antarctica. Here, every week we bring a new topic, and we're just trying to put fun, cool information, and everybody here to hang out. Somebody said round and hollow and flat. I don't subscribe to the round, hollow, flat theory, but whatever anyone subscribes to is fine with me. Honestly, people make a little too much about having people subscribe to their theory. Believe what you want to believe. You're not hurting anybody by believing it, and you don't need to force other people to believe it with you. I know he did, Fate. I know he did.
Showing you some images that were allegedly taken using remote sensing photography of. These are allegedly 2.3 kilometers below the ice covering the continent of Antarctica. Now, Antarctica, if you remember, is a place where lots of theory, innuendo, and rhetoric spawns from. We have a variety of people that come and go from Antarctica, yet the average person is never allowed to go there. The militaries of the world, the same ones that are always threatening war or at war with each other, somehow, much like CERN, all come together as good friends, as long as they're using their military might to keep the average citizen or explorer away from Antarctica. Antarctica has a lot going on that many people don't realize, and only certain people are allowed to go and visit. For instance, John Kerry just visited Antarctica, and he's also a member of Skull and Bones. Here's a photo of him right here, Secretary of State John Kerry on a frozen section of the Ross Sea near Scott Base in Antarctica. And we never get an answer. Why in the world are they there? There is allegedly nothing.
I just want to add one thing before we go down this rabbit hole. One Step Too Far is going to have a premiere. Now, I'm pretty sure it's at 1 a.m. Eastern, but I'm going to ask him to drop his own links and explain it to you in the chat. He's going to have a premiere that should be on right after this. So I want you guys to go over to his channel after this, and he can drop the links to the premiere itself if it's ready for 1 a.m. or whatever is going on. Just wanted to let you guys know that to make sure you're subscribed over there. Now back to Antarctica. Yeah, why is John Kerry just chilling out in Antarctica? No real reason why he's there. Is John Kerry a fucking scientist? Nope, but he's just over there. Obama sent him over there just to hang out. Just a fun place to go, right? Man, they will sell us anything, and most of the people are buying it. And tomorrow, trust me, I'm going to be all over the Iran situation. Tonight, we have some fun. We get into some conspiracies. And then the real stuff with Iran tomorrow. So let's just sit back, grab a cup of hot cocoa, grab something stronger, grab your smoke, sit back and relax. It's episode number 9. Let's have some fun.
Going on there, but these people continue to go. And at the beginning of December, we had Buzz Aldrin getting medically evacuated from Antarctica for whatever reason. You see, this is a very odd and mysterious place. Look at some of these bases. This looks a lot like the stuff people claim that they see on the moon.
Now, Buzz Aldrin medically evacuated out of Antarctica. I don't know if you guys remember this story with Buzz Aldrin. Let me pull this up for you real quick. Weird story from Buzz Aldrin. So he was medically evacuated from Antarctica. They gave no reason why. They just, one day after he cryptically tweeted out a picture of a pyramid that they found down there. This is the picture right here that he tweeted. And he warned, he put out in a tweet that he deleted shortly after he was, quote, medically evacuated, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." That's what Buzz Aldrin tweeted out before they had to medically evacuate him. So whatever happened there, I'm not sure, but that's another very weird thing around this story. I don't know if you guys remember this whole situation with Buzz Aldrin where he kind of went crazy for like 6 months warning people of what was going on down there. He was going on the expeditions, and then he tweets that out shortly after they evacuate him out there, say he has a medical emergency.
And then right after this, there was the tweeting incident where Buzz Aldrin said that there was an ancient force of evil that was going to come out of there, so on and so forth, and it was all debunked. But you never know, because in this day and age, you never know what's real and what isn't. But what is real is what NASA is talking about right here. They are now pointing towards something that was always of a mythical stature. And what I'm talking about is the Perry-Reese map, the azimuthal equatorial map. I just killed that when I said it. I don't care. Perry-Reese in 1515 AD. I've followed this map for about 11 years. That's how long I've been awake. And I listened to a lot of really great researchers explain what they thought the origins and the meaning of this map was. NASA scientist Nathan Borowitz claims the infrared images are definitely intriguing. Other experts claim they are clearly the proof of ancient human engineering. Now, the fact that this map was made in the 1500s and shows the continent of Antarctica better than pictures that we have up until right now prove or disprove evolution big time. They disprove Big Bang big time. So that's the reason that they've kept this at a mythical stature. Now, I'm going to show you some people that have researched, some experts on this Perry-Reese map, and I don't agree with all of them. I don't agree with all their philosophy, but something that's plaguing YouTube community right now is people, if you don't believe every single thing they believe, you are quickly and efficiently labeled a shill. It didn't used to be like that. It is now. Let me tell you, if you don't have the mental capacity to discern what is true and what isn't, and decide to throw the baby out with the bathwater, it's your loss and you will never wake up. But for the people that can discern, follow me.
Navigators and seafarers need maps if they're going to sail around the Earth. Now, this map is a modern map, and I picked it up at the Library of Congress in the United States. It's an azimuthal equidistant projection centered near Cairo. And in common with all modern maps, it incorporates a number of advanced features. It incorporates highly accurate longitudes, and particularly relative longitudes, and it incorporates an advanced map projection. It isn't easy to represent a spherical object, the Earth, on a flat piece of paper, and to do so with a considerable degree of accuracy. And this is a problem that cartography has had to overcome. So we find good map projections which require advanced mathematics and good relative longitudes. Interestingly enough, there's a category of ancient map which also shows these modern features and which doesn't fit with the received view of the development of human history. One of the most famous of these maps is the Perry-Reese map. And I'm showing it here because I want to compare the projection of this map with the projection here centered on Cairo. Notice the west coast of Africa and the east coast of South America. And coming down here to the Antarctic Peninsula, tonguing up towards the south of South America. It's that precise projection that we find on this 1513 map. Again, there's the west coast of Africa, the east coast of South America. And coming down here, we find a representation of the northern Antarctic Peninsula. In 1513, when Piri Reis drew the map, Antarctica had not been discovered. In fact, it wasn't discovered until 1818 by our civilization. So there immediately is one anomaly on this map. And another is the mathematics used in the map projection. And a third anomaly is that it incorporates highly accurate relative longitudes. To do longitudes accurately on maps requires a chronometer, a marine chronometer that will keep accurate time at sea. And again, this was something that our civilization couldn't do until the late 18th century. So this map, fragmentary though it is, appears to incorporate many features that are not supposed to have been known about in 1513. Piri Reis explains why in these texts that he wrote on the map. He was a Turkish admiral and he wrote these texts on the map. And what they say is that the map is not his own work. It's a work of synthesis. It's based on more than 20 earlier source maps, that he put all these maps together and derived his own map from these. And unfortunately, the source maps that Piri Reis used have not survived. Is it possible that the advanced features of this map originate in those lost source maps, which Piri Reis told us went back in some cases to before the time of Christ and had come from the long-lost library of Alexandria in Egypt. Another strange thing about the appearance of Antarctica on this map, it's been studied by U.S. Air Force coincidence.
Now, that was a presentation Graham Hancock put on back in the 90s. I followed Graham Hancock for years and years. I've listened to every single solitary word that man's ever spoken on video. I love Graham Hancock's view on many things, except Graham likes to take spiritual journeys using ayahuasca, the Amazonian psychedelic that allows you to go to other dimensions. It's much like DMT, the stuff Joe Rogan's always blabbing about. The only issue I had with that is that every time Graham Hancock explains a situation that he encounters while using ayahuasca, it's always a serpent of types that he meets up with. And that right there just rings alarm bells for me. But his information, the fact that he's actually been to Ethiopia, Egypt, everywhere, gives him lots and lots of credibility. He's seen things that I haven't, and his opinion matters to me. Even I don't necessarily agree with all of his methods. So again, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Now back to the article. These are clearly features of some sort of human-made structure, resembling some sort of pyramidal structure. These patterns clearly show nothing we should expect from natural geomorphological formations found in nature. We clearly have here evidence of human engineering. The only problem is that these photographs were taken in Antarctica under 2 kilometers of ice. That is clearly the puzzling part. We don't have any explanation for this at this moment, he admits. Now, that just brings me back to Bonesman, Skull and Bones member Jonathan Kerry. Okay, John Kerry, Secretary of State. This guy is tight with all the elites, and I would imagine that if there is an Illuminati, he is one of the members. That's just all there is to it. Why is Kerry? Why is Buzz Aldrin? Why are everyone going to Antarctica? There's no drilling, there's no mining, there's no money to be made. So what is that exactly out there? According to NASA's own article, they are saying this is clearly evidence of human engineering, 2.3 kilometers below the ice, and then NASA themselves bring up the once laughed at, once conspiratorial Piri Reis map. But here we are again. Now, what I'm thinking is they are getting ready to roll it out. They are getting ready to pull off the great deception. And it makes sense because these guys are all tied together with the same people that have been hiding the bones the skulls, the evidence of human hybrids, which were fallen angels coming to Earth, mating or raping human women and having what is known as Nephilim, giant children. And the evidence for this is scattered all over the earth. And again, the Smithsonian was made to keep that evidence buttoned up so humans like us would never get a chance to see it. And that
It is no understatement to say that Antarctica is a land of secrets and mystery.
This is Antarctica, nearly 6 million square miles of ice-covered wasteland.
With reports of many world leaders curiously convening there in recent years, there's been a renewed rash of rumors running wild about supernatural occurrences, ancient alien civilizations, hollow earth, and even races of human hybrids. The only thing that's clear, though, is that much of what's actually going on in Antarctica has been and continues to be hidden. Will it ultimately remain that way? Here's what we found.
Though Antarctica was only officially discovered in modern times since the early 1800s, a curious and tantalizing fragment from a 1513 trade map created by the Ottoman Empire appears to show Antarctica connected to South America and supporting a warm, ice-free coastline with resources to sustain a lot more life. Though experts have, of course, debunked its imaginative suggestions and downplayed its significance ever since. Yet while most have general faith in the map-making of modern experts, it may be significant that the actual satellite images of what officials claim is a fully explored continent are actually composited together in a mosaic with a gaping hole in the middle around the South Pole. This is supposedly the truest picture of Antarctica that we're given, courtesy of the NASA Landsat program, which admittedly continually replaces and edits the composite, including when whiteout strikes. So the question that remains is, are we seeing what's really there? These satellite images are often stunning and give us a photorealistic picture of our planet, but like a video game with convincing graphics, satellite images are still only a representation of what's really there. They have flaws, and like all maps, the images simply aren't the actual territory. That may seem like a nitpicky point, but it's an important distinction to make, especially when we see large portions of what look like painted over or blurred out areas of the continent where bases are supposed to be located. Considering even super secretive Area 51 shows up pretty clear on Google Earth, you have to ask yourself, what's really in Antarctica that in 2017 we still supposedly don't have sophisticated enough technology for the general public to see it? Investigations that West Antarctica and East Antarctica are actually two continents separated by an under-ice channel have largely been upheld. The Transantarctic Mountains and the chain of mountains up the Palmer Peninsula connect with the Andes Range, nearly touching South America where they were once connected by a land bridge. The questions began as soon as Antarctica was quote-unquote found. Have they, or will they, unearth something significant from humanity's past? Despite being told the entire continent is basically an icy, barren wasteland where hardly anything could survive or thrive, with no native human population other than visiting scientists.
Freezing wastes without people, without life, without vegetation. Nature's most formidable challenge to man.
Earlier reports show this is simply not the case.
All the way back in 1893, Captain Larson reported discovering petrified wood and worms on Seymour Island, as well as a captivating area with dozens of clay balls placed on top of what looked like pillars, which had the appearance of having been made by the hand of man. But these were later dismissed as basalt that happened to collapse into the appearance of carefully sculpted clay balls on top of pillars. Between 1928 and 1930, then Commander Richard Byrd completed the first of 5 major modern expeditions to explore the Antarctic, and right away his team were captivated by evidence that there had once been a warmer climate while they were surveying vast tracts of otherwise icy land at the bottom of the earth. This expedition, which cost $400,000, was financed by Edsel Ford and John D. Rockefeller Jr., among others. A 1930 article on Byrd's first mission noted, quote, "They expect in time to solve what is perhaps the world's greatest mystery, the existence of extensive vegetation of the vast uplands near the South Pole thousands of years ago, noting sufficient geological evidence to prove that at one time Antarctica was once warm enough to support at least a rich vegetable life. In 1947, the U.S. Navy claimed they found a place they named the Bunger Oasis, though it may have been explored earlier. The Soviets established a research station there during their expedition in 1956 at the now defunct Polish A.B. Dabrowski Polar Station, in a fascinating 200 square mile iceless area. At the same time, it was noted that the Russians moved so much equipment and supplies into the oasis that Australian and New Zealand diplomats were convinced they may be setting up permanent air and submarine bases there.
No wonder that one of the most compelling anomalies spotted on satellite images of Antarctica is only 35 miles from the Soviet base, in what appears to many to be a domed metal lid over some sort of underground entrance. In the meantime, no one has even confirmed or fully debunked the suspicions of conspiracy theorists on what this image even shows. Throughout further wide-scale explorations in the 40s and 50s, scientists on military expeditions reported finding ice-free oases with waterfalls cascading down rocky cliffs into dry valleys containing freshwater lakes on the interior of the continent, mountain ranges reaching thousands of feet above icy wastes, fossilized trees, and even the remains of petrified forests. In 1957, the U.S. military acknowledged finding at least 2 other oasis locations in Antarctica only a few hundred miles from the South Pole, both free of ice and large enough to house entire air bases. But the military
Okay, just gonna pause it there for a second. There are so many anomalies on Antarctica, and that has to be why it's being explored by every single country. It's why it's shrouded in mystery all the time. It's just like Richie from Boston was saying, like they're saying, there has to be a reason every single government is going there, is making sure that, you know, they stake a claim there. There's 9 different countries that, you know, divvy up the land between each other. And obviously the United States is at the front of that mission. The United Kingdom is behind this. The Soviets are behind this. Germany, we're going to hear stories of when Admiral Byrd went, the Nazi fleet he encountered there. There's a lot of different anomalies there. Underground lakes. It's difficult to imagine anything beneath the thick layers of ice. What we're learning now, it wasn't always ice, guys. That's just something they teach you in school. That's just something that they stick in your head. Antarctica, ice. Arctic, ice. They just make sure that it's always in your head. It was never called Antarctica until they named it Antarctica. Hopefully we don't get any buffering coming up. I'm just trying to get through this with a very smooth, very nice stream. See, the video output's a little low, so moderators, let me know if we have any issues. There's deep lakes. In the beginning I showed you blood falls. There's these weird deposits that make this very weird red flowing water come out of the ice. They call it blood falls. Unusual creatures that are there, because you have to be very odd to live in 89.4 degrees Celsius waters and ice. They're microbes, crustaceans, colossal squid, these weird spiders the size of dinner plates, giant worms, just very weird animals. Ancient fossils and ancient rainforests have been discovered there. There's these crazy mountain ranges. There's this weird phenomenon, this massive slab of ice that when the wind hits it perfectly, it makes this singing, this eerie kind of sound. How weird is that, guys? It's just this weird ice that when it's hit perfectly, it makes that weird singing, humming sound. Obviously, the giant hole that we talked about, that anomaly that they don't want to explain, they just cover it up on Google Maps, nothing to see here. Mount Erebus, despite the freezing conditions, Antarctica is a home to a number of volcanoes. I mean, there is just so many different anomalies here, guys. The Southern Ocean, McMurdo dry valleys, so they have a huge part of it that isn't covered in ice. It's just this dry kind of desert area. And then they found ancient meteorites there. It could have been the spot of a cataclysm. There's a lot of this, I don't know what you would call them, but kind of like fungi and weird different microbes that don't live anywhere else on our planet. So transpermia is one of the theories, that an asteroid hit and brought those here. Or is this some relic of some ancient civilization that knew more things than us, that would have left our planet and gone somewhere else, and were able to bring these things back? Anything's on the table when it comes to Antarctica, and everything's on the table when it comes to Spooky Sunday. So we have aliens, Nazis, lost cities. Now, they use the word Nazi. I'm just going to use the word German, okay, guys? I don't think we should be labeling people Nazis just because they might have did something. We're not sure about that whole situation. We don't even know if it happened. We have to question everything. So I don't want to use that term. I think it's very demeaning to German people to use that word. Antarctica is a breeding ground for mystery, and it's had its fair share of what they're calling conspiracy theories, of course. Now, we have elongated skulls, we have strange pyramids, spaceships, bizarre structures, giant staircases. Many people believe that Antarctica once housed extraterrestrial life. That was one of the missions that the Germans, headed by Adolf Hitler, would have been down there for. They had a German base down there where they were kind of perfecting their alien technology that they had. And we've talked about the Bell, Die Glocke, and all of that stuff. Well, Antarctica was where they were having their underground bases to store that stuff, build that stuff. And when we get to Admiral Byrd, that will be the story that he encounters them down there, and he explains them having ships that can fly pole to pole. So basically he's saying they have ships that can run circles around us. And obviously we all know about the Vril, we know about the Thule Society, and all of these things that the Germans and the SS were involved in at the time. Maria Orsic, we talked about this numerous times on the channel. Now, the mystery of Antarctica continues deep below its surface where no one's gone before. People think the lost city of Atlantis might be there. They might think there was thriving civilizations that were there before. Now, it's also theorized that the Germans used underground bases there and kind of like a secret hideaway. The rumor has it that Hitler never died. He got away, went to Argentina. But they also found U-boats off the coast of Argentina, and they found German relics in Antarctica. So he definitely had some kind of base going on there. He was definitely doing military drills, and that's why in 1960 the U.S. got involved and made sure only certain countries could be there, and they would have to sign this treaty and keep everybody else away because they don't want anybody finding what they're going to find. So I just want to interrupt that great Truth Stream documentary to kind of give my commentary on the subject. But we are going to do a lot of clips here. We are going to do a lot of little documentaries because I think Truth Stream Media did the best job, and I don't think I can start the Spooky Sunday without showing their work. Now, we were only 6 minutes into their clip, and I could tell everybody's really enjoying it, so I'm just going to get back to the work they did. Then I got some raw footage from Admiral Byrd, and then we're going to get into Hollow Earth theory. I got a lot of stuff planned for this, guys, so hope you guys are enjoying so far. Thank you, everybody that came out. I really appreciate you guys. Jan says she's loving it. I love it, too, and I love that you guys really enjoy it. So I'm going to get to playing this again, and I will pop back in when need be. Fata King says, fascinating. All right. Yep. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it.
The military wouldn't disclose the locations to prevent other nations from potentially establishing bases there. These oases reportedly have a radically different climate from the rest of the continent. Places free of ice and snow where the soil can reach temperatures of 77 degrees Fahrenheit at midday. and warm winds blow over freshwater lakes where strange specimens grow. While transversing the interior, a seismologist gave his account in 1958 of coming across a fresh lake 100 yards across with pinkish flowers growing in the bottom of it, which he could not identify. Experts have concluded these areas could sustain year-round human settlements, yet these highly contrasted landscapes are often difficult to spot when browsing through satellite imagery for whatever reason.
Antarctica's past life as a tropical oasis is further upheld by the discovery of geothermal heated lakes, where almost any form of life could have survived and even continued up until this point, even while the rest of the continent froze over. The Russians at Vostok Station confirmed the discovery of a huge freshwater lake buried nearly 2 miles under the ice cap that they named Lake Vostok. It has attracted a great deal of attention ever since they've successfully drilled.
Yeah, so let me, I will read the donations towards the end of the show, but one did come in, and it was Kevin Dugan saying, Kevin Dugan, Hacksaw, Jim Duggan, says, do you think DSP would survive in such a climate? Well, he can survive anything, so yes, I think so. That was a $3 donation. I appreciate anybody that supports the show. You can do so through PayPal or Streamlabs, and I will read those at the end of the Spooky Sunday to not, I don't want to interrupt the flow of the Antarctica, but I do appreciate anyone that come in, and I will read all of them towards the end of the show. So thank you, guys.
Through the ice cap and collected active biological samples of living bacteria from a liquid lake that has otherwise been an isolated ecosystem for what scientists claim is as much as 15 million years. Located at the so-called South Pole of Cold, Lake Vostok is nearly as big as Lake Ontario, and at 6,000 square miles in surface area, 160 miles in length, and 30 miles of width, it measures to an astounding depth of more than 2,600 feet at some points. Its scientists claim they've found more than 3,500 life forms, as well as rich fossil evidence from a time that they've up until now known nothing about. Even more curious, however, was the confirmed discovery of a huge magnetic anomaly on the east coast of this underground lake that spans a vast 65 by 47 miles. Mainstream scientists hypothesize that a thinning of the Earth's crust at that location caused the anomaly, while others suggested a meteorite hit there, while still others suggest that the dimensions of such a significant magnetic anomaly could signify a lost city on the shores of the underground lake. With so much secrecy shrouding Antarctica, do you think the public would be told if something were found there? Interestingly, it parallels the plot to the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Scientists on the moon unearth a vast tychomagnetic anomaly that proves to be a monolithic signal device from an unseen extraterrestrial race. Hundreds of these subglacial lakes are known to exist, and most remain still unexplored. However, when scientists drilled into the ice cap of a much shallower and smaller subglacial lake known as Lake Willans, they found living jellyfish, crustaceans, and even 8-inch translucent pink fish, and what they said was an old ecosystem eroding from the ice hovering above the lake. These finds and more continue to fuel speculation, as they have over the past century, that Antarctica is holding on to secret links to mankind's past, and possibly the remnants of ancient civilizations which could have resided there in warmer times.
Despite the appearance of being completely peaceful and solely dedicated to international cooperative scientific research, and despite the public being repeatedly told for decades that Antarctica officially holds, quote, no military value, the massive continent and its surrounding islands in the polar region are of great strategic significance. The place doesn't just lay idle and ownerless. And this surrounds perhaps the biggest secret of Antarctica, an open and rather obvious one. The 1959 Antarctic Treaty, signed by a dozen nations that include the U.S., Argentina, Australia, Chile, New Zealand, Norway, Russia, France, and the United Kingdom, put in place the appearance of a harmonious international atmosphere where Cold War hostilities are rejected and peace is permanent. But in reality, major military forces remain embedded there, outwardly serving as the custodians of man's activities on the continent. And it remains true with now 53 signatories. Significantly, the 1959 treaty immediately followed the 1957-1958 International Geophysical Year, which organized dozens of nations to participate in the Antarctic and other parts of the globe to establish permanent scientific bases and conduct unprecedented exploration and experimentation. The recommendation to make 5758 an IGY event was initiated by astrophysicist Dr. James Van Allen, who was working with the Navy to test his developing theories about the geomagnetic forces that surround the planet, including the intense bands of harmful radiation that bear Van Allen's name. Meteorologist and Navy contractor Harry Wexler was working closely on this research as well, and was appointed chief U.S. scientist for the International Geophysical Year, which created a dual pretext for upper atmosphere tests and weather experiments that served both military and scientific interests, and for creating a permanent military backbone that could provide continuous support for bases, transport, and logistics.
The main job that faced the Seabees during the second year at Antarctica was the building of 5 new bases. Each of these stations would supply vital information to the various scientific projects of the IGY program.
Science gave the U.S., Russia, and Great Britain's military the justification needed for a permanent mission in the South Pole.
Operation Deep Freeze was commenced by the U.S. in 1955, 2 years before the International Geophysical Year, sending thousands of naval and Air Force troops, as well as militarized construction units from the Navy Seabees, to carve out permanent bases to support the scientific effort.
In less than 1 month, pilots of EX-6 mapped and photographed over 1 million square miles of territory.
Operation Deep Freeze created a never-ending permanent mission for the military amid a climate of international cooperation. The opportunity for cover and secrecy was astounding. In proposing the bases, members of the U.S. National Security Council forced an improbable merger between their national military goals and the International Geophysical Year program, silencing early opposition from the scientific community via the recognition that a military-backed mission, channeled through the National Science Foundation, would bring nearly unlimited funds for the projects they had championed, albeit at the cost of quietly acknowledging that parallel military activities were taking place largely in secret.
The activities of Operation Deep Freeze 1, the Glacier, with Admiral Dufek aboard, made a notable cruise around the Antarctic continent. The purpose of this voyage was to locate suitable sites for more IGY stations to be established in later operations. The Glacier's cruise around the continent brought Deep Freeze 1 to a successful conclusion.
Under the treaty, territorial claims are not addressed, though new claims are prohibited. With the status quo on ice, the U.S., British, and Russian installations remain like Antarctica's other secrets, frozen from political interference. But this form of peace can be deceiving and belie anything lurking just beneath the surface. With the treaty not taking effect until 1961, Operation Deep Freeze was a huge preemptive military mobilization effort to establish a permanent foothold on the continent. The only real question is, how far did they get?
There have been many rumors about underground bases on Antarctica, but by their very virtue they are difficult to confirm, and as a result, legends, rumors, and imaginations run wild. And yet, there is solid evidence to support the idea that a significant military-industrial complex is indeed embedded underneath Antarctica's icy facade. Most of the early expeditions to Antarctica in the later 1800s and early 1900s were largely concerned with establishing claims and merely surviving the harsh environment. With improved technology, flight became viable, as did ice-breaking ships and specialized vehicles for ice-capped terrain. In the 1920s, U.S. Navy Admiral Richard E. Byrd achieved fame as the first person to fly over both the North and South Poles, though not without controversy. Byrd's first of 5 expeditions to Antarctica from 1928 to 1929 was privately sponsored by backers including the Rockefellers and Fords, seeking uranium, coal, and shale deposits, gold, copper, and other exploitable minerals, as well as locations to establish base camps. Byrd established Little America, among other camps, which was later plunged into the sea by the shifting ice. Byrd's second 1934 to 1935 expedition focused more on weather, Publicly, the expedition was mostly known for Byrd's dramatic wintering in alone at a meteorological station where he nearly died of carbon monoxide poisoning from a poorly vented stove. Yet he lived to publish a best-selling account of it. Behind the drama, it was a major effort to study the relationship between seismic activity, geomagnetic forces, atmosphere, and weather. James Van Allen, who discovered the Van Allen radiation belts that bear his name, took part in Byrd's second expedition as assistant to the chief scientist, and later became a driving force in Antarctic weather experimentation, while Byrd helped the U.S. secure its claims there.
Hitler's
Okay, guys, so now we're about to get into Admiral Byrd. We're about to get into the all the expeditions that went on in Antarctica. Operation High Jump, Operation Deep Freeze. This is where it really gets interesting. We're going to have raw footage of what happened. We're going to have Admiral Byrd. When he came back to the States, he actually spoke about it. This is where a lot of the theories come off from, because the way he spoke about it, he wasn't holding anything back. He was a very respected admiral of the Navy at the time, and when he started mentioning this stuff is when they came out with the he's a loon, he's a kook, oh my god, he's starting conspiracies. Yes, I know that isn't Byrd. I'm saying we're about to get into Admiral Byrd. They're talking about someone else, but they're about to get into the story of Admiral Byrd. I just paused it on that one little section. But there's going to be raw footage. There's going to be a lot of stuff that they documented and actually released to the public at the time, and his interviews were obviously public, so we're going to have a lot of information. I think I heard a donation come in while I was talking, so I will read them right now. Someone sent in a PayPal donation, but that also sends their name, so I don't want to dox that person. You shouldn't be doxing people. But King Kelma donates $10, says, "Thanks for all your work, man. I look forward to these streams all week." You know, stuff like that, just, you know, that's really why we do this. It's just, when people say stuff like that, you don't really think of the weight of it, you know. When I'm at my normal job where I do some doctor work, you know, I dabble in a practice. I opened my own practice. I'm starting to hand out prescriptions now, and everything's going good in the doctor world. I had an open heart surgery earlier today. And then sometimes I go and I'm just a simple fry cook. But when you hear things like they wait for your stream all week, and, you know, it's just part of the day that makes them, you know, feel better or just enjoy themselves or whatever they come here for. I appreciate that kind of stuff as much as you guys appreciate me putting on this show. So thank you very much. I think we need to get back to the documentary. We don't need to get too sappy about everything. Just thank you guys. We hit 3,000 subs. We're getting back to growing again, and it's all because of you guys keeping on coming back, and I'm very happy about that. So let's get back to the documentary, The Real Secrets Hidden in Antarctica, and then we'll get into Operation High Jump. I got about 5 minutes of raw footage from that. And then I got some more footage from there. We'll kind of play around with the raw footage, see which each of these documentaries show. Then I got some more stuff about the actual Nazi bases down there. We'll talk a little bit more about maps, some Hollow Earth theory stuff that we wanted to get into. Obviously, everyone knows Agatha. You know, everyone knows about that theory, but we'll talk about it. I'm just trying to see what I had lined up. A Face Like the Sun had a great video. There will be some David Wilcock, but I'll try not to get too crazy with it. Even for Spooky Sundays, David Wilcock gets a little secret space programming for me. I don't want to even bring it up on Spooky Sundays. That's how much I'm not into that theory, but it's all for fun. It's all for entertainment, this show. The rest of the week, we're very serious business, but tonight, Spooky Sundays are all about fun. So enjoy, guys. I hope you guys are having as good of a time as I am. Who's having more fun than us is a quote that I'm going to start using. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Someone said, I guess I'm stuck with my gray-haired cardiologist. I am not going to... Ladies, I cannot be a practicing gynecologist. Men, I cannot be a proctologist for you. I'm not taking any new patients right now. So just... We're going to have to relax. I will send prescriptions out. I can advise you on what doctor to go to. But if you need a nice order of wings, maybe some curly fries, maybe a blooming onion, a simple fry cook like me may be able to help you out.
right-hand man, Hermann Goering, personally signed off on Germany's third expedition to Antarctica, and its first since before World War I. This became the infamous Neuschwabenland Nazi expedition, launched in 1938 and completed officially in 1939, just before initiating war with Poland. It was to be a secret reconnaissance expedition, with only 33 members plus the ship's crew. Following a German whaling expedition in 1937-38, it aimed ostensibly at increasing the production of fat for the coming war effort. However, the real mission was clearly to establish permanent bases for Nazi raids and other naval activities. The Nazis staked out claims and dropped flags from planes over a large 231,000 square kilometer area, taking some 16,000 aerial color photos, along with prospector data to support legal claims based on the right of exploration, utterly disregarding previous claims by Norway over Queen Maud Land. Finding out about the secret mission through their German diplomat, Norway quickly attempted to annex the territory by decree 3 days before the Nazi expedition even reached Antarctica. But it didn't deter Germany, who issued a decree in August 1939 after the mission, establishing a German Antarctic sector, officially called Neuschwabenland. Less than a year later, in 1940, Germany had invaded and occupied both Norway and Queen Maud Land. Even mainstream historians admit officially that there is evidence of at least minor Nazi coastal bases in Antarctica, ones that were large enough to dock German battleships during the war. But there's no clear record of activities beyond that. Unofficially, rumors allege that several Nazi U-boats that disappeared from the records had carried top officials including Hitler to the South Pole after the war, and that a more extensive and permanent base existed. If this holds any truth, one possible location for a substantial fortress would have been the 200-square-mile ice-free Schirmacher Oasis, which the Nazis had first identified from the air, and which supported numerous international stations after the war. Either way, after their 1938-39 Neuschwabenland expedition commenced, Admiral Byrd was sent to Antarctica from 39 to 40, on a U.S. government-sponsored mission to establish permanent bases, further exploration, and most assuredly to spy on Nazi efforts there. In turn, news of Nazi bases drove support for building more American bases there. Though modern scholars have tried to downplay the existence of Nazi bases, news reports of the time captured the concern, as this article highlights that, quote, the capture of a secret Nazi hideout proves valuable naval bases can be built in ice fields. It also stated, quote, there, hidden away in some undisclosed quarter of the Antarctic quadrant, a British naval patrol recently found a Nazi naval base. True, it was only of small dimensions, yet was sufficiently enough equipped to have repaired even the Graf Spee, referring to the notorious Nazi commercial raider that was attacking British commerce ships. A 1942 article asked U.S. naval bases in the Antarctic and began discussing, quote, the possibility of using the Antarctic continent as one of the jumping-off places for the great naval offensive that would wipe Japan's rising sun flag off the face of the southern seas. And it discussed how it would become a pivot from which we could guard and control both the South Atlantic and the South Pacific. Clearly, Antarctica had become an important military position. Admiral Byrd also made this point at the time of his 1940 expedition, saying, as we all know, the Panama Canal may be under attack someday. It may even be destroyed by a hostile power. The Navy has to think of such a possible eventuality. That is why Antarctica looms in strategic value.
The British formalized its efforts to surveil and counter Nazi presence in the Antarctic during World War II under Operation Tabarin, where they sought to establish major Antarctic bases. The name Tabarin references a famous charlatan and street performer from the 17th century who used trickery and guile to hawk snake oil cures and put on provocative acts. The mission sought to utilize any pretext to occupy key Antarctic islands and counter illegitimate Nazi claims in Queen Maud Land. The British saw it as a power play to stave off Axis domination of the southernmost routes, especially between South America's tip and the Upper Peninsula. Britain reported not only Nazi bases there, but vexing Japanese whaling expeditions as well, and a definitive move was needed to outmaneuver Nazi-friendly Argentina, who held the de facto claim to influence over the region. The British occupied several key positions, including Deception Island, a tiny donut-shaped piece of land known for having the only ideal sheltered anchorage in Antarctica, but also host to an active volcano under its calm waters, as well as Hope Bay, an ice-free coast on the tip of Palmer Peninsula, as well as the more northern Falkland Islands, which it had first claimed in 1908. In short, this is closely related to why Britain felt strongly enough about the place to fight a war with Argentina for the Falkland Islands in the 1980s, long after Britain's empire had supposedly faded. These strongholds and others were necessary to defend the important passage routes between the South Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, vital to the commercial and military affairs of both Britain and America, as well as to contend for supremacy in Antarctica. In World War II, the British fired upon the Germans' notorious Graf Spee pocket battleship in 1939 during the Battle of River Plate. A previous report indicated that British believed the Graf Spee was docking at a covert base in Antarctica and raided its commercial vessels. Though it wasn't heavily damaged, the Graf Spee was forced to scuttle to Uruguay and abandon crew after its critical fuel cleaning system was destroyed. Captain Langsdorff committed suicide, and dozens of people died. The quiet battle for control of the southern oceans had now cost blood. Under Tabarin, Britain tore down Argentinian flags and destroyed whaling stations that could supposedly be used by the Nazis and set up their own bases and stations to replace them. In the post-war era, Britain made fresh claims over the South Shetland Islands, the South Georgia Islands, and the Falkland Islands, even after the 1959 treaty. More secretly, the British built a significant base, known as Modheim Base, on the mainland of eastern Antarctica and in the general vicinity of the Nazis' new Schwabenland base in Queed-Maudland. An advanced base was also built in the ice-free portions of the mountains near the Pyramid Nunatak, but it remains little known and obscure even on modern satellite images, utilizing underground tunnels to connect tiny research huts and a sophisticated system to protect the base from snow and ice damage over time. In fact, it is very hard to find any mentions or any information at all about the Modheim bases in newspapers after the mid-1950s.
It was with the assertion of British power on the southern continent that U.S. Admiral Richard E. Byrd launched Operation High Jump, and with the wartime conclusion of Operation Tabarin, British interest in the Antarctic essentially rolled over into Allied interest with the U.S., almost seamlessly continuing during the U.S.-led military invasion to conquer Antarctica. It was completely unprecedented. Admiral Richard Byrd and Rear Admiral Richard Cruzen led some 4,700 men and brought 13 Navy vessels, an icebreaker ship, an aircraft carrier, battleships, a state-of-the-art submarine, and a fleet of planes and helicopters developed for the extreme cold to surround the continent and establish new bases. This largest ever polar deployment served as an exercise for cold weather warfare to oppose communist aggression and came with the talking points of protecting against an enemy operating from the poles and able to mobilize very quickly. Thus, the U.S. intended to establish a permanent presence there. At the mission's conclusion, Byrd told reporters embedded with him, quote, "The almost terrifying rate of speed at which our world is shrinking is the great object lesson. We can no longer believe that distance guarantees us safety, that oceans and poles will be our ever-protecting no man's land. If he could succeed in taking 4,000 young Americans into the cold and unknown Antarctic, that others could do the same as well." But Admiral Byrd was forced to retreat from the mission after only a few months. Newspaper accounts blamed the ice and the freezing up of the waterways, the same excuse mentioned ahead of time in papers before the expedition departed. Some have claimed that Byrd met a superior force that even possessed UFO aircraft that drove Byrd out of Antarctica. But this account is largely substantiated by a quote which attributed Admiral Byrd as saying, in case of a new war, the continental U.S. would be attacked by flying objects, which could fly pole to pole at incredible speeds. However, retrieval of the article this quote was said to appear in, dated March 5, 1947, and written by Lee Van Atta, an International News Service correspondent who accompanied the expedition, carried a different account, with a few similarities from which grains of truth were plucked. It read, quote, "Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd warned that the U.S. must guard against any future invasion by hostile aircraft from across the polar regions of the Earth," which bears a resemblance yet a different meaning from the phrase flying objects which could fly pole to pole. The Admiral declared it is no scare phrase but a bitter reality to state that conflict, should it ever come again, will lash out at our nation over one or both poles. Byrd's warning was couched in the post-war narrative of a Soviet threat, which Byrd used after the war to justify cold-weather Cold War training near both poles, which Byrd initially oversaw. Lesser known is the fact that the U.S. followed up the very next year in 1947-48 with Operation Windmill, which continued.
Okay, we'll get into Operation Windmill in a second. Hope you guys are enjoying this. I want to get to a little actual raw footage of Admiral Byrd speaking, so he can speak his own words. They are actually going to get into a little bit more. I think they show his interview that he gave, so we do have that footage as well. Silver balls floating in the air, Nazis' newest war device. This was dated 1944, guys. So this was back when you could actually get a little bit of information into the press. We all remember when Roswell happened, it was actually reported on, pulled back, then they just muddy the waters. You don't know if it's a psyop or a distraction or misinformation. But when they were reporting on silver balls floating in the air, these were this wasn't extraterrestrial technology unless if it was, engineered back from or given to the German SS at the time. So the Nazis were working on their own technology. We don't know exactly where they got it from. Obviously, the speculation is they were traveling to other dimensions. They were channeling people. They were using the Vril and the Thule Society to channel other dimensions and get this kind of technology. But we know they worked on the Bell. We know they worked dLive. We know they worked on many different UFOs. That's what they would call them, unidentified flying objects, but a lot of different crafts. And it pains me to do this, guys. I swear it pains me to do this. There's many channels that talk about this, but not as many as there used to be. I saw Eagle Eyes brought up a channel that I haven't seen. I'm guessing they're show it at this point. And I swear to God, it pains me to say this, but fuck, I don't even want to say it, but I got to give him credit because he talked about it. Fuck, can I even say it? The Kurgan actually talks about Nazi technology. There, I said it. So I'll give. I have enough integrity to give credit to somebody that actually brings it up. So I heard a video of his that he talked about Nazi technology. So there are people out there talking about it, and there's great documentaries on the subject out there. I just thought that was funny to bring up, but I'm kind of joking. But he did do it, so I will give him credit for it. So silver balls floating in the air. This is Antarctica Operation High Jump. Admiral Byrd Vril Force Fields Active is what this video is called.
The technology was returned by 30 submarines through a large commando action.
Oh, I'm not saying go over there. No, don't get me wrong. I am not saying go over there. I'm just saying he brought it up. Do not misquote me on that. Oh, fuck, it's out there now. It's over. Disavowed. People are unsubscribing. It's over. He's been subverted. Oh, no. Oh, shit. He fucked up. I forgot who I was talking to. I told somebody this, actually. I think it might have been Fata Kings I told about this. Someone was talking to me about the Nazi tech, and I was like, yeah, he actually has a video on it. So, you got to give credit where credit's due. You can't be irrational about things.
Okay, let's pick up the scenario. We were originally talking about the spiriting out of the two spacecraft out of Berlin before the Allies arrived. We said that they were put aboard two submarines. They spent 6 months at sea, and they finally landed in Argentina. Now, from that point, they were taken into Antarctica, into a section of Antarctica called Queen's Maud's Land. And there they disappeared, and they were not heard of for some time. Now, intelligence sources, and of course I was in the intelligence business at that time with the agency, reports indicated that they were in there and they were operative once again. Now, there was a major concern by
Getting a quick buffer on my end. Let's just try to get through it.
Continued survey operations and, even more significantly, furthered the study of electromagnetic effects on weather at the South Pole, though the mission was also aborted early. The U.S. hesitated and backed off from a planned Operation High Jump 2 due to international pressure and suspicion about the militarization of the South Pole. Instead, it opted for the peaceful approach of Operation Deep Freeze that began a few years later in 1955, just ahead of the international treaty. It should be noted, just after World War II, the first nuclear war, that it was mentioned multiple times in the papers that not only was Antarctica a probable source of coal.
We've found enough coal within 180
Okay, so I think we're good, right, guys? Yeah, it looked like it was just a small little glitch. I hope you guys didn't really experience too much. I think it was just on my end. So I hope everything's good. Sorry about that. I don't actually know what happened. One Step says, Yo, Davey, if you know what videos you're going to watch before you start a stream, you should download the videos with a bit downloader so you don't have to worry about buffering. Thank you. That's a very... I honestly didn't have the time tonight, but I'd love to talk to you about that. Also, if you guys weren't here before, now that there's more people, about 300, One Step Too Far, make sure you could just right-click on him and go to his channel and hit subscribe, hit the notification. I'm pretty sure he's premiering something around 1 a.m., but he can tell you guys in the chat. He can link you guys in the chat and explain exactly when, where, and what the topic is that he's going to be discussing. Always help out other channels in the community. It's how we're going to all grow. It's how we're all going to get better. It's how we're all going to get our information and the stuff that we're working on out there. So make sure you're subbed to him. Let me see here. Nope, you don't need premium to download videos. You can just do a normal YouTube downloader. So it says Davey is Gentile. That's funny. All right, so now we're getting to actual Admiral Byrd speaking. So let's get right back into this, guys. Sorry about the little... That's funny. All right, I have to read that one from Detroit. Okay, sub to One Step and the Kurgan. Got it. Okay. You guys... Okay, I can't take it back now. I can't take it back. Trevor says, how do you right-click on a phone? I think you would just hit his name and go to channel and then subscribe to him. One Step says, I'm most likely going to have to do the video on dLive because uploading is a pain. Okay, so just put your link to your dLive channel so they can go to it, and that'll be easy for everybody. Fata King says, the Kurgan has been to Antarctica. Someone says you can screen record with Mac while researching. Oh, I record with the OBS. Honestly, it's just the computer's old, and it just freezes from time to time. It's fine. Burks, everything is good. Guys, can you guys just chill with the back and forth and it's all good. Everyone's having fun. Nothing's too serious. We can all just enjoy ourselves. We don't have to have back and forths. Let's just all move on from that, okay? I think we can all handle that and enjoy this stream. All right, so let's get back to Admiral Byrd. Sorry about the interruption, guys, but had to let you guys know about One Step because I'm dying to see this work, and he'll tell you in the chat what he's going to be doing, and it's you guys are really going to enjoy it, I'm sure. I'm waiting for it.
Instead, it opted for the peaceful approach of Operation Deep Freeze that began a few years later in 1955, just ahead of the international treaty. It should be noted, just after World War II, the first nuclear war, that it was mentioned multiple times in the papers that not only was Antarctica a probable source of coal.
We've found enough coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
But also of vast stores of uranium, which multiple countries, including Britain, were down there in search of.
Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter. Well, it was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
The year after World War II ended, at the same time papers were quietly announcing in tiny articles buried in their back pages that Antarctica might be hiding large stores of uranium under its ice, a law and diplomacy professor at Tufts College was warning that the new free areas of the world, like Antarctica would become under the 1959 treaty only a dozen years later, should be placed under the control of the United Nations, quote, thereby establishing the first tiny toehold of world government in practice. Professor Leo Gross went on to say that the suspected presence of uranium in Antarctica necessitates the UN to act right away to, quote, start a pool of world government into which the nations could one day jump themselves, as many believe they will have to do before lasting world order can be established.
Is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose. Everything else would be economically unfeasible, wouldn't it?
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come and we'll have to go after that stuff down there. Well, you know, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fighting over the Antarctic.
And is there a competition among other nations to try to get information about Antarctica and possibly to secure some of these resources?
Well, yes. There are now 7 nations very much interested.
During the construction of these major installations, tunnels were dug between buildings, tunnels were dug for supplies and utility units and for specialized equipment. Underground entrances and bases were expanded and reinforced to protect against the harsh weather. Were there secret underground military facilities constructed during or after this time? Were there any banned weapons tests or military activities and installations that went fully operational before the Antarctic Treaty set in? The answers are mostly silent, like the vast icy wastelands that have intrigued so many searchers.
Below the surface of a giant ice cap, a city is buried.
Some very interesting disclosures were declassified about U.S. military installations in Greenland, which took place in the 1960s with the cooperation of Denmark and NATO.
This is the story of Camp Century, the city under ice.
While feeding European allies and the American people a highly publicized cover story about the triumphs over nature and building an underground city for research under the ice at Greenland's Camp Century,
the basic concept was simple. A system of 23 trenches would be dug into the ice cap and then covered with steel arches and snow. Branching off the main communication trench would be a series of lateral trenches housing complete research, laboratory and test facilities, modern living quarters and recreation areas, and a complex of support facilities.
The Pentagon kept its real activities a secret. Only later did the truth about top-secret Project Iceworm surface. The Pentagon was attempting to put in place mobile nuclear launching sites that would utilize thousands of miles of tunnels to station ICBMs from theoretically random positions, all without Denmark's knowledge or consent.
Later, an escape hatch would be placed at the end of a small wooden form for an emergency exit.
Were similar installations attempted in Antarctica? Like Greenland's Camp Century, Antarctica's McMurdo and Byrd stations also featured a nuclear reactor, as well as under-ice tunnels.
16 of these escape hatches were strategically located throughout the various tunnels.
The inconvenient fact is that the U.S. lied to its international allies about nuclear weapon sites in Greenland, so it's fair game to question whether they did the same in the seemingly peaceful and cooperative atmosphere of frigid ice and penguin research.
The same questions apply to Admiral Byrd's equally publicized Operation Icebox, a tentative plan to partner with private corporations and bury food surplus in Antarctica. Perhaps it was just another cover for building an extensive underground tunnel system. It was talked about in interviews and papers from the time, but seemingly never materialized. This diagram shows how they can effortlessly dig a continuous trench, then place shipping containers and rebury for long-term storage. The article advertised, quote, "We plan to bury a cache of 100 loaves of bread every year over the next 100 years. We won't be here to finish the experiment, but our great-grandchildren will. We could create a permanent icebox for our food surpluses in the Antarctic, save on storage, and contribute a great act of international goodwill." effects that would reciprocate with its conjugate radio site in Quebec, Canada.
Resembling a gigantic peeled orange, this Rowan dome was assembled from prefabricated curved sections. Inside, it contained special equipment used for recording weather conditions. Another building, unusual in its dimensions, was the Aurora Airglow Tower.
Skull and Bones journalist and op-ed extraordinaire William F. Buckley visited the South Pole and remarked on its use for weather control, interacting with scientists studying hydrodynamics of the Earth's core, as well as geomagnetic effects on weather.
Harry Wexler, the chief U.S. scientist who was experimenting with weather control, was put in charge of the International Geophysical Year in 1958. This was the same year that Harry Wexler saw his plans for bombarding the ionosphere with nuclear weapons undergo live tests in the Navy's 1958 Operation Argus, creating an artificial aurora burst hundreds of miles away at magnetic correlates from the firing positions.
The Earth itself is a magnet. It acts as a dipole surrounded by a field of magnetic force. We see that the magnetic field extends a great distance from the Earth. Any one of these field lines can be thought of as lying in a shell.
Advances in understanding the electromagnetic shield that protects the planet lent themselves to military attempts to manipulate the weather.
And all types of operations, all types of projects can come out of Antarctica, guys. That's why it's so shrouded in secrecy. That's why every single government has a hand in being there, but no actual civilians go there. Now, I know a lot of people say that, and people will say, well, civilians have actually been there. It is literally built, and they have a peace treaty around it to just have governments of countries and their scientists, science expeditions there. So there is underground bases. We have evidence of the, obviously we were talking about Admiral Byrd getting into it with the Nazi fleet that was down there. I think that was the video I was playing when we kind of buffered out for a second, so I'm going to try to actually pull that one back up real quick. Hopefully this doesn't screw the whole system up here. So far so good, right guys? Everything's coming in clear. As soon as I say that, usually we start having problems.
The technology was returned by 30 submarines through a large commando action.
Okay, let's pick up the scenario. We were originally talking about the spiriting out of the two spacecraft out of Berlin before the Allies arrived. We said that they were put aboard two submarines. They spent 6 months at sea, and they finally landed in Argentina. Now, from that point, they were taken into Antarctica, into a section of Antarctica called Queen's Maud's Land. And there they disappeared, and they were not heard of for some time. Now, intelligence sources, and of course I was in the intelligence business at that time with the agency, reports indicated that they were in there and they were operative once again. Now, there was a major concern by world powers to go in and capture the technology and the two spacecraft which they knew were in Antarctica. And the intelligence reports indicated that one known as Admiral Byrd was to be recommissioned, and he was to be sent in there to retrieve the two saucers and also the technology and personnel associated with it. Later reports indicated that Admiral Byrd was given 8 months and unlimited funding to go in and pull this thing successfully off. But we also know that within 8 weeks he was totally defeated.
What do we know about Operation High Jump, about Admiral Byrd's expedition in the autumn of 46, the early spring of 47, to the South Pole? This is an expedition that has been almost forgotten, and it's very hard to come up with any information about it. The few articles that were published at that time in, let's say, National Geographic magazine would not give any clue to the real intention of that expedition. However, recently we discovered a unique documentary film in color, 1 hour long, made by the U.S. Navy, It was a massive naval operation that involved an aircraft carrier, several battleships, an armed submarine, and probably another 20 supply and battleships. It involved 4,000 troops, U.S. troops, and the rumor is that there were also British and Russian contingents within these 4,000 troops. It was a massive naval operation. It was not, as it has been presented to the public, that it was a peaceful expedition to explore the natural resources of the South Pole. They descended to Little America, which is the place of the previous Admiral Byrd landings on the South Pole. And then they started a massive overflight over the whole area of the South Pole, trying to locate the German base that was established there almost 10 years earlier. The Germans started somewhere in 1936-37, seriously exploring the South Pole. And by the time the war ended, the rumor is that they have established a massive underground colony with at least 100,000 scientists, researchers, elite SS troops, children from Hitler-Jugend, young boys and girls that were to become the seed of this new and colony that was to be built under the principles of the super race selection. What was it that Admiral Byrd found on the South Pole? Incredibly enough, in an official American Navy documentary film, we found footage of what Admiral Byrd found on the South Pole. He found giant freshwater, never freezing lakes with areas around them that were free of any snow. And in that film, we show footage of the Navy planes landing in these lakes. But even more so, he found, to his amazement, that his planes were disappearing very quickly. A lot of his planes were attacked by anti-gravity devices that were operated by the Germans there, by anti-gravity saucers. A lot of them crashed into invisible barriers and disintegrated in mid-flight. This is an indicator we're up on colony, and he was.
So as the story goes with Admiral Byrd, is he started experiencing very odd anomalies. The planes were reporting. Picture something like the Bermuda Triangle stories that you hear, or the Devil's Triangle, that the planes couldn't keep their course, and he found himself inside of the convex, the hole that we see that is in the images of the South Pole and the images of Antarctica, that he would have flew into that, and he found what he described as a flourishing civilization. No ice, wasn't like the Arctic that you hear. He found what he described as large whites there, so this must have been the Aryan race that was down there of beings, the Aryan beings, the tall whites. He found flourishing trees, grass, lakes, plant life, animal life. And this story was basically erased from history. They would have called it, people call it Agartha, people call it Hollow Earth. There's a lot of different theories. I saw someone say Gaia. There's a lot of different theories on what it's called, but it basically sparks the whole Hollow Earth debate. So let me just get out of a few links here and pull up a couple more things. We got some time to go here, guys. And this was some raw footage from it. I will try to get to his interview if it's in here. There's a lot of different things to get through with this thing. So the interview is in the Truth Stream documentary. We heard him speaking about how Antarctica has it's the size of the United States of land that hasn't been explored yet. It's just a very interesting journal read and a very interesting documentary that they basically covered in that Truth Stream documentary. But we'll get a little more into it. Okay. So I think I have the links I need pulled up here. So was Hitler building an advanced UFO technology in Antarctica? So they're always going to call them the Nazis and that they're sick and twisted. We're just going to call him Adolf Hitler, and we're going to call them the Germans. Now, some believe as many as 250,000 senior officers of the SS, perhaps even Hitler, escaped in U-boats from Germany in the last days of World War II, but they wouldn't have known where they'd gone. There's many speculation about Argentina. Some say they went there, protected by a sympathetic Juan Perón administration. Others believe they escaped to a secret base in Antarctica that was already developing startling, powerful weapons like the Bell, Die Glock that we talked about, a lot of anti-gravity weapons. During the war, they called them Foo Fighters. Just advances in technology that no one saw before, stealth technology, a lot of stories around that. I know a lot of people talk about Argentina, and there's actually places in Argentina you can go to today that speak only German. They only serve German food. They're little provinces in Argentina that you can actually go to. Now, the History Channel puts out shows like Finding Hitler, and all that stuff's kind of propaganda garbage. But it is true that there are U-boats that were found there. There's people that fled from Nazi Germany of the time and went there, and there are whole towns and provinces full of German people. Now, they already knew they were down there developing weapons in Antarctica. Shortly after World War II ended, the United States mounted a huge expedition to Antarctica called High Jump. Like I said, they went there so many times. There was about 4 expeditions that they put on the books, but they also had many that were off the books. So they brought 4,000 U.S. personnel, dozens of aircrafts, bunch of ships, and this is where the story of Admiral Byrd finding this Agartha, as you can see on the map on the screen, kind of explains it. You can see from the top and the South Pole and the North Pole would both be entrances into this hollow Earth. Now there's, like I said, it would have its own ecosystem down there. You would have oceans. You would have everything that we see on the on our surface would be in this inner Earth. That's what they say when you hear the screams of hell coming from down there. There's also those kind of civilizations that live down there. There's a lot of theories that are out there. For the point of this show, we're talking about Hollow Earth, we're talking about Agartha, we're talking about secret Nazi bases, and we're talking about Antarctica. So I know people are going to bring up Flat Earth, I know people are going to bring up heaven and hell. We're just pretty much sticking to this topic for this show. Someone said tropical forest and deep ice caves. Yeah, he found it was a tropical climate that he experienced, and that's what he reported in his journal. So, Hollow Earth theory. Is the subterranean civilization of Agartha real? Is there evidence of a civilization or atmosphere capable of harboring life deep beneath the Earth's surface? While a lot of information we receive from NASA and environmental agencies may be accurate, probably not, there is still so much to be discovered about our planet. And that was the main thing around Admiral Byrd, what he was saying. This was for at the time when Americans wanted to go on expeditions, when we wanted to conquer the wild frontier. So to hear about a place like Antarctica that was basically undiscovered and untouched, everybody wanted to know about it. Everyone was interested. So when he came out with this story, a credible admiral that wasn't called crazy until he told this story said that he flew into basically a whole new civilization inside the Earth's crust. You can believe that people were very interested at the time. Now, until more recent times, many people were convinced that our planet was a hollow shell with a civilization of early ancients residing underground. There was a French novelist named Jules Verne, known for his series Voyages Extraordinaire, Journey to the Center of the Earth would be the American version of that. And they believed in this subterranean society. I think there's actually an episode of Ancient Civilizations that talked about this. Some stuff you got to worry about copyright on YouTube, so I'm going to be very careful with some of the actual History Channel stuff, but I will play a short clip and pause so we don't get taken down.
June 13th, 2014. Scientists researching the Earth's mantle announce that they have found what they believe to be a vast body of water, 3 times the volume of all of our oceans combined, contained within a mineral layer 400 miles inside the Earth. The discovery shakes the foundation of what scientists and scholars thought they knew about the ground under our feet.
We have just scratched the surface of the Earth. We drilled down like 8 miles and we had to stop because it got too hot. Out of 4,000 miles, basically, to the core of the Earth, we went down 8. That's nothing. We
Earth. Some ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and suggest that according to our earliest mythologies, an other Earth might not be found in the heavens, but deep within our own planet.
One of the most consistent themes that we find in ancient cultures when we travel around the world is the idea that there is another world.
So this is the theory that we have our above world, as above, so below. And this is how they sell it to us. But you also hear this around flat earth theory. They say many ancient civilizations showed versions of that. They tell you about how it's in the Bible. So a lot of people can craft narratives to make it fit the theory they believe in. Now, with Hollow Earth theory, you do have many ancient civilizations depicting this.
Inhabited too by people, and that they are an advanced race, and even that they have trains and vehicles that are moving through this inner Earth.
And Al makes a very good point. That's a very good point, Al. So many military bases and tunnels underneath that it's basically hollow right now. Maybe not at Gartha, but partly it makes sense. That's a very good point. If you think about all the stuff that they're building underneath our feet, that's why you see these giant sinkholes all the time. That's not just a natural phenomenon that happens. That's because they're literally eroding the crust underneath our feet from underneath us. All right. Yeah, that was a very good point, Al. I didn't even think of that one. Here's a picture that you see very often when talking about the Hollow Earth theory. As you can see how it convexes right at the poles. Like I said, I just don't want to get clipped for this video, but they talk about Admiral Byrd real quick.
Hollow Earth.
Eagle eyes, that is funny in quotations. Deep state. Very funny.
Would be revisited nearly 2 centuries later in 1947 when famous polar explorer Admiral Richard Byrd flew reconnaissance missions over the North Pole. Byrd allegedly reported in his private journal about a mysterious land beyond the North Pole, which he called the center of the great unknown.
Admiral Richard Byrd was able to fly to the North Pole and back and recorded flying over lush green areas where none should have been. And then 3 years later, he flew over the South Pole.
It's rumored that when Admiral Byrd's task force actually got to Antarctica, that one of the first things they discovered was an entrance into a hollow Earth civilization.
So they described this as a vortex. As soon as he went into that is when all the anomalies started happening. His, all the mechanics on his plane started glitching out. Everything was going crazy, and he goes into this vortex that leads him to a hollow Earth.
That was populated by very, very advanced beings.
Admiral Byrd made a lot of unusual statements, including talking about what he called a new kind of craft that could fly from pole to pole. And when Byrd got back to the United States, he was brought back to Washington, where he was questioned very heavily about his statements. And allegedly he was told to stop talking about this.
So they basically made him out to be a kook. They discredited everything he said, even though this is the admiral at the time that they're sending for the most important mission of the day. You know, they really want to get into this land known as Antarctica. They really want to stake their claim there. and he's the admiral that's going to lead all the men there. But yet when he gets back and tells his story, now he's crazy. Now it's a kook. Someone said, is this where bird brain comes from? I don't know. But which one did I learn the other day? I did learn about when you say, man, that came out of the woodwork. I learned that was from the olden days, that when they would hammer the wood, little worms and little like bugs would come out. So that's where they came up with coming out of the woodwork. Just saying. I don't know where bird brain come from, but I would like somebody to like Google that right now and let me know. I love learning about old sayings that people use and where they come from. I know it's gay, but you know it's fun, and this show is about fun. All right, so we're almost at the 2-hour mark. We're gonna do a couple more clips, and then, like I told you guys last week, at the end of the Spooky Sunday, we're going to stay on and kind of have a chat about what the next topic may be. So let's just do a couple more clips. I think we've covered a lot around Admiral Byrd, and we've got some really good information. Now, I want to give you a little bit of David Wilcock. Like I said, not a huge fan, but if you're going to do it, he did a whole series about something he calls the Antarctic Atlantis. So I want to give him the credit by showing an article that he dropped, which a lot of people took information from him to write their articles. Rational says it comes from tiny brains they have, which are close to reptilian. Oh yeah, like a bird-sized brain. That makes sense. That's not as fun as woodwork. Just saying. But thank you, Rational. I love learning about little stuff like that. Someone says, that's okay, Wilcock tells some truth. Yeah, the secret space program is not something I could ever, subscribe to, but it's okay.
But then there it is in italics. The lost city of Antarctica, massive ancient civilization, lies frozen under ice. Holy shit.
And he's loud.
2 hours after my article comes out? Is that a coincidence? Come on. No. This says the lost city of Antarctica. Shock claims massive civilization exists beneath a mile of ice. Antarctica is hiding a huge city underneath more than a mile of ice, according to incredible claims. December 11th. Artist's impression of a doorway to Atlantis. They're getting you ready. And we were told you've got to get this out before you get scooped. And look, there it was, 2 hours later. Unbelievable. They talk about the Piri-Reis map, and they say, look, it's got the subglacial topography of Antarctica before they were supposed to know what it was. And they quote from Charles Hapgood, the original guy that had the theory that the Earth shifted on its axis in space. Antarctica was originally not on the pole, but it was tropical, and it moved. What they didn't get into was this interesting fact that you can look at Antarctica now, and if you look at the top of this image, it says subglacial lakes. So these blue areas are beneath the surface of the ice. The surface is all white and you just see ice. But if you go in there, they know that there are areas where there are lakes, meaning this warm water. And you can take a look and see where the lakes are, meaning this is where the continental masses are, and where two chunks of Antarctica, there's a big chunk on the right, a littler chunk on the left. We only knew that since 1958. There's another image of it in gray. But yet, here we have from 1754, the Bitchute map from the Vatican showing Antarctica with a channel in between the middle right where those subglacial lakes are.
And this is why old maps are fascinating. Now, hearing that it came from the Vatican, you immediately have to assume there's some kind of subversion, there's some kind of lying going on. You have some sick cretins at the Vatican. And that is not to mock anyone's religion, but we know what goes on at the Vatican, so we know they would try to subvert. But looking at old maps, I would very much recommend people here, and I'm not going to talk too much about this, but we've are obviously going to have to do a deep dive on Tartaria and get into their whole empire. I highly suggest subscribing to John Levi's channel. people like John Levi, people like A Plain Truth, people like Max Egan. Now, I've reached out to A Plain Truth and Max Egan both and asked them if they'd like to come on. They both agreed. We're just kind of hashing out details right now. So when they come on, I am definitely going to ask about Mud Flood. I'm going to ask about Lost Civilizations. Now, I've done about 3 streams on Tartaria and Ancient Maps and Lost Civilizations, and I noticed yesterday someone did a stream that was very similar to the stream I just did. You guys can find out who that is and guess who it is, but someone basically took all the information of my stream and basically word for word put out their own stream. Not saying they didn't look at A Plain Truth and Max Egan as well, but they did not give them credit. Now, I would give John Levi, his name is Jonlevi. Please subscribe to his channel. He does great little deep dives, quick like 15-20 minute videos that he gets into these old maps. And what I'm basically trying to convey is these old maps show you what really is these land masses. It really shows you how things actually looked, what kind of civilizations were running things at the time, and how you can look at a map today and compare it to the maps of old and see where they lie to you. It's just right in front of your face. Standing Mannequin says Flat Earth British covers the most angles. Yeah, Flat Earth British is another one that has great old footage, like from the 1900s, of how things actually used to be. How could have they built some of this architecture? So you get into advanced ancient civilizations that were doing things that we don't do currently today. And those are just some of the channels I know. I'm sure people here know of other channels. But I would say John Levi is one of my new favorite channels to watch because his videos are very easy, they're very calming, and he just puts out good work. So please subscribe to him, Max Egan, A Plain Truth, even Flat Earth British. I'm not a Flat Earth guy, but he put up a video about the old state fairs of like San Francisco, and they would build these elaborate architecture and these elaborate buildings and then just tear them down. So you get into foundlings, you get into lost civilizations and how they would move people and take children for work and then get rid of them. It's very interesting stuff. All right. Someone says, but we flat earthers are crazy. No one, like, that's my problem with the flat earth thing. Literally no one's addressing you or talking about your thing, but you have to make it about your thing, and then you have to make it an argumentative thing. You can't, like, you take the fun out of it. Like, am I mocking flat earth in this video? No, I'm not mocking it at all. We're talking about hollow earth. We're getting into very conspiratorial topics. Flat earthers want to get very argumentative if you don't adhere to their exact model of what they think the earth is. So, I mean, like I always say, I've never been in space. I don't think I'm ever going to be in space. So I don't know what the Earth is shaped like. I have no idea of actually knowing at the end of the day. Who am I to believe? NASA? A YouTube video that tells me? I can't know either way what the shape of it is. So at the end of the day, I'm happy with I don't know. And if you're not happy with you don't know and you want to think it's flat, I literally don't care. Like, it's fine with me. Like, it doesn't bother me one bit. Rational says flat earth derail everything. Mods terminate with extreme prejudice. No, don't do that. It's just you can't leave the dome. Fata Kings has it. We are on a flat dome. Frankie B. Flat. That's our leader here, guys. That's our leader. All right, let's do a couple more things, then we'll just have a little chat. Now, I don't know if any donations came in. I'm pretty sure, yeah, MTDYL, who always donates to the channel, and didn't even say anything, just $3 donation. Thank you very much, buddy. It's highly appreciated. Now, I usually don't work Sundays, so that's why the show was kind of put together live and came on at I just kind of surprised you with what time it was going to be on. Usually I have the whole day to prep them, so I hope it still came out okay, even though I did the prep late last night, didn't really sleep much, then worked all day today. But it looks like we got through with no buffering, so I'm very happy with how this stream went. We talked about the Hitler's hideaway down in the South Pole in Antarctica, where he had his bases for his UFOs and technology he was working on. Now, I have one cool story that has to do with Admiral Byrd, but kind of indirectly to do with Admiral Byrd, and that is they name places down there after Admiral Byrd. So there's like the Byrd Science Site, the Byrd Center of Research, stuff like that. You know, since he conquered a lot of land down there and kind of discovered a lot of things, they made a lot of buildings named after him. And I was able to find a very odd story of a person disappearing from one of these buildings. So it has to do with Antarctica, but it's just kind of a very cool story. So let me just close out a couple links here so we don't experience any buffering, and I will play that video for you guys. It's actually from Beyond Creepy, a channel that we actually really like here, even though he said he didn't want to come on the show. I asked Beyond Creepy, I said, do you want to come on the show? We do a Spooky Sunday. It's really fun. And he said, you know what, dude? You don't crush enough. Now, I think he was being sarcastic, but I kind of appreciate that he said that. But he's not coming on. We also want to get Steph Young on the show. We definitely want to get Steph Young to come on. So I'm kind of just babbling while I'm closing links here. All right. Let's see if these things are pulling up here. Now, it's a strange disappearance. The dark side of Antarctica. Mystery of a 175-year-old skull could shape the continent's future. And I want to recommend a book. Yes, I'm going to recommend a book. So in this show, I have now shouted out the Kurgan, and now I'm recommending books. Oh my God, I think my mind's been subverted, guys. No, but I told you guys about this book a couple of times. It's called Atlantis Found, and it's by Clive Cussler, and it has to do with Atlantis, Nazi tech, the search for Atlantis. It's just a crazy book. Antarctica, it's all involved in this book. It's really, really good. You guys should definitely check it out. It's called Atlantis Found. By Clive Cussler. Just trust me, if you're into like adventure kind of books or reading at all, I think you guys will like it. So the dark side of Antarctica, mystery of a 175-year-old skull could shape the continent's future. In 1985, a woman's skull, the oldest known human remains ever found in Antarctica, was discovered lying on the Yamana Beach at Cape Shirif in Antarctica's South Islands. Thought to align with the beginning of the first known landings on Antarctica. It belonged to an indigenous female from the southern Chile in her early 20s. Thought to have died between 1819 and 1825 at a beach camp made by sealers near remnants of her femur bone, although female sealers were unheard of at the time. No surviving documents explaining how or why a young woman came to be in Antarctica during this era have been found. By the terms of the Antarctic Treaty System, in 30 years' time, reports the BBC, bones such as these may come into play in territorial claims for Antarctica's pristine wilderness, as nations are preparing to stake their rights as the owners of swaths of nearby uninhabitable land. So literally, they find bones down there, and countries need to know the origin of these bones so they can literally stake claim to part of the land. That's how serious countries are about owning parts of Antarctica. That's how important it is to them. So if it's important to them, it's important to us, because they're obviously up to some fishy shit down there. But I just thought that was a little cool story, that this woman's bones could actually dictate who gets to own a swath of land down there, because they could stake claim to being one of the first people there. It's just a very interesting, kind of weird story that I found in my research. Now, like I said, I'm going to play this strange disappearance video from Beyond Creepy once it loads up. And then we're just going to chill out for a little bit, and we'll talk about what next week's topic should be, and people can ask questions, and we can just shoot the shit. So I basically got 2 clips left. One's the Hollow Earth Chronicles, and I saw this on a Face Like a Sun's channel, and one is the strange disappearance of this dude that was at a science base down there. Very weird story. So let me wait for these to load up. I will go to the donations and read those out real quick. thank you to anybody that supported the show as well. Uncle Dave says, this is super interesting to me. Thank you, Dr. Frycook. Thanks, Uncle Dave. I appreciate it. Kevin Duggan says, someone put me in timeout for Dome. Okay, Kevin Duggan is a huge supporter of the channel. Can we not just... Everybody, let's just chill. I understand people, there's a lot going on right now, so some people may get trigger happy. It happens. No one's getting banned. If you just get timed out and it was a mistake, we can move on from it. It's not, this isn't the end of the world, guys. Let's just all calm down. You know what I mean? It's literally not a big thing. Glitchmod says, I told you timing out is Gabe. It's not even something we're going to distract the whole show over. It literally takes 30 seconds, and then you can chat again, and everybody's okay. Nobody died. Nobody's sent off to Antarctica. Nobody has to be worked on by Dr. Crocko. You don't have to come to my little dungeon that I made up in my basement where I do weird experiments. Doctor of Chaos. So, anyways... hope everyone is enjoying the show so far. It seems like the majority of you are. I think we hit about 300 at one point, so that's a very good night. Now, let me read One Step Too Far just wrote. Okay, guys, so the movie is uploading but won't come out until tomorrow. But I do have something very special cooked up for you guys on dLive at 1 a.m. Eastern. I venture to say you guys might enjoy that more. So, guys, One Step is going to drop his dLive link in the chat. Please click on that. Please subscribe to it and go to it at 1 a.m. Eastern. And then just follow his YouTube channel so you can get the premiere that he's going to put up tomorrow. And he can explain about what it's going to be on. But just click on his dLive link and make sure you're going to support it. I'm going to be in the chat at 1 a.m. to hang out and see what this premiere is. See what this video that he's doing is. Or it's actually going to be live. So very interested in seeing what that is. Alright, so let's talk about this weird disappearance. For some reason, the Flat Earth Chronicles isn't coming up, so I'm just gonna close that one out. We'll get to that another time. So we got a strange disappearance of Carl Robert Dish. 10-minute video, very weird story. Then we'll come back on after it, and we'll just hang out for a minute, and we'll do a Q&A. We can do an AMA, Ask Me Anything, and we'll talk about next week's topics and what we think would... Basically, at the end of the Spooky Sundays, what I'm going to do is take a poll in the chat, come up with 3 topics to make a Twitter poll, and then I will instantly put that up on Twitter, and we can vote on it all week for what the next topic will be. So I think that's something we're going to start doing at the end of every Spooky Sunday.
On May 8, 1965, Carl Robert Dish, a National Bureau of Standards scientist working in Antarctica, stepped out of the radio noise building he worked at and seemingly disappeared off the face of the Earth. It began at around 09:15. 26-year-old Carl Robert Dish, an ionospheric physicist assigned to the bird station in Antarctica investigating VLF radio noises, put out a call to his fellow scientists that he was leaving his substation for the main station complex, situated a little over a mile away. Even in a storm, it was a somewhat routine trip that Dish had made over 24 times since arriving at the station. Helping him along was a hand line that ran from the meteorology building at the main station to the ladder at the base of the radio noise building where he worked. The temperature was a brutal 45 degrees below zero with winds of 25 to 30 knots. Carl braced himself for the short trip and stepped out into the night. Some 45 minutes later, scientists stationed at the main station began to wonder why Dish hadn't yet arrived, and a team quickly departed to search the area of the hand line. At 11:30, searchers managed to pick up his trail that led west. They would follow his footprints for about 4 miles, which led curiously towards the southwest end of the runway. The runway was used for flying in supplies to the station. After that, the tracks just seemed to vanish. The search party would return to the station briefly to refuel and then head back out. They spent 3 more hours trying to pick up the trail, but to no avail. At 1815, they returned to the station to warm up. At 1900, another search party was sent out to investigate the area of the supply line and dump. No tracks were found. At 1950, everybody at the station gathered and made a human chain search from the dump to the end of the runway. Again, they found nothing. Adding to that, flares were fired every half hour from the Aurora Tower, and floodlights were blasted out over the station. Visibility conditions eventually prevented the flares from being useful, and they were discontinued. Another vehicle search party was launched at 1800 hours on May 9th. It covered a 1 mile wide by 9 mile long area running south of the runway. One of the searchers noted that, quote, there was no noticeable shortening of stride in his tracks, unquote. At 0740 on May 10th, an 8-man search party equipped with 2 vehicles, a sled-mounted hut, and sufficient fuel and provisions to last a week, departed the station on a southerly track. It searched to about 12 miles south of the station, making perpendicular sweeps to the east and west and marking the trail with flags. Sadly, no tracks were ever found. On May 12th, they searched the northeast and southeast sectors of Old Birch Station, some 6 miles away, and repeated attempts were made to reach the Longwire site, which was some 11 miles to the northwest, even though that direction was contrary to the direction of the footprints, and the searchers doubted Dish would have made it there anyway. The visibility was good, but darkness severely limited their range of vision. The next 2 days' visibility was so poor due to blowing snow and fog that no search was possible. The search was eventually called off on May 14. In the end, more than 35 miles of area around the hut was covered in those 5 days, to no avail. When he left the substation, Dish was fully clothed with customary Antarctic clothing, large jacket, boots, gloves, hat, etc. The temperature during the search was about minus 44 degrees Fahrenheit, with intermittent storms with winds up to 45 knots and visibility reduced to 0 by heavy blowing snow, seasonal darkness, and overcast. At one point, the temperature dropped to minus 79 Fahrenheit, seriously interfering with the movement of men and the vehicles. The station complement utilized the brief twilight at midday and the light of the full moon whenever possible to advance the search efforts. While it's possible that Dish merely stepped out of his substation and got lost in a blizzard and nothing more, there are many curious aspects to the story that some Fortean researchers have made note of. In his book, Our Haunted Planet, the late John Keel wrote of some of the more mysterious elements to the vanishing of Carl Robert Dish, including a curious quote that appeared in the Baltimore Sun regarding the huskies used in the search. Speaking to William J. Perkinson, a writer at the Sun, Ron Sefton, Bird Station leader, said, quote, if Dish had fallen and was lying in the snow, the huskies would have seen him long before the searchers did. Similarly, if he had fallen and was covered by drifting snow, the dogs would have discovered the mound and rushed to investigate it. That's just the way huskies are, unquote. Anyone familiar with the work of David Paulides will be aware of the many times he cites cases in which search and rescue dogs either will not or are simply unable to track those who have gone missing, often uncharacteristically. Interestingly, not long after Dish disappeared, his own dog, a husky named Gus, also went missing. If Dish was merely on foot, how is it possible that he could have walked so far as to not be found by man or animal alike? Even more curious was the reports by some of the searchers of the odd things they encountered during that 5-day search, including mysterious lights in the sky and weird noises. Not unlike a loud generator or an engine that could be heard off in the distance, the thoroughly creeped out searchers were never able to get close enough to locate a source for either the lights or the sounds. Antarctica is mostly uninhabited, except for some international scientists who work closely with one another. It's very unlikely that the lights and sounds the scientists encountered were merely other people hanging around. Given that during much of the search the area was in the grip of a blizzard, it makes it even more unlikely. That said, if not people, then who? Or rather what? Could these strange lights and sounds ultimately be the reason for why Dish never made it to the main station? Dish was no spring chicken. He was an experienced researcher. He had made the trip to the main station over 25 times in the worst conditions. It seems unlikely that he would simply disregard the hand line, and to be sure, the report makes it clear that after stepping out of the substation, he began heading west towards the end of the runway, not south in the direction of the main station complex. Why would he do this? Had something gotten his attention, an odd noise, or a light perhaps? Something hovering over or maybe landed on the runway? Had Dish's want to investigate lead him to foregoing common sense? One of the searchers noted that there was no noticeable shortening of stride in these tracks, as if Dish was walking towards something with a purpose and not stumbling around blindly. If he had gotten lost, why had he not merely followed his tracks back? Obviously, they were visible enough that the searchers were able to track him for up to 4 miles. Granted, while this is merely speculation, one has to wonder what would cause Dish to disregard his own safety, wander away from his predetermined destination, and out into no man's land. It simply makes no sense.
Just a very weird missing 411 type that kind of tied into Antarctica disappearance story. I love stuff like that, guys. If you, anybody that follows my channel knows I love the missing 411. I love strange disappearances that you have to really look into, and they're very creepy. I really love shit like that. So that was from Beyond Creepy. He does great work, and that was an older video of his. That's from 2015. He actually recently got demonetized, and I don't understand what he could have did to get demonetized. I mean, my channel was monetized. When I asked Beyond Creepy to come on my show and he said I don't crush enough, I said, dude, how are you demonetized and I have monetization? Obviously, with the rule changes, and they're finally... when my channel started growing and I put more videos up over here, they took that away immediately. I think it was literally at like 12:01 on the first of the year, they just, wiped out the monetization, which we expected was going to happen. We were getting lucky that we actually had it, and people sent in super chats, so I'm sure next month I'll get, whatever the amount is going to be from whatever super chats came in. So I'm still very appreciative that it happened, but yeah, Lou, he just meant crush enough puss. I think he was just making a joke and letting me know that he actually knew who I was and kind of knew the community. He wasn't actually saying I don't crush enough to be a dick. I think he was literally making a joke and kind of referencing shit that we talk about. So I thought it was cool. That means he's actually seen a video before, which is it's always nice to hear when another content creator that you watch actually seen your shit before, especially when you're a smaller channel like mine. So guys, that is wrapping up Spooky Sunday. That is 2 hours, 11 minutes. Fada King says he said he was busy too. Yeah, just like the crushing puss story though. If he's listening, I just want to mess with him a little bit. But yeah, he puts together great videos. No, I don't know if he is or isn't, but it doesn't matter. If he is, he is. It really doesn't matter if he watches Owen or that. That shit doesn't bother me. It's not personal for me. Like, I don't want them wiped off the face of the earth like they said about me, guys. They're literally not even worth a mention. We've handled that situation. They're waving the white flag. They're backpedaling. If you saw my video earlier, you got everything you need to know. Fada King says we'll get him eventually. Yeah, I think as this show comes on every week and people see the quality and the time and the preparation and how much I care about this show as much as I care about all my other stuff. But, we've really put a lot into this. Whoever was here the first week, you can literally see the upgrades every week that we've made. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm not trying to be braggadocious about it. We've literally gotten better and better every week with the format, with how we put it out, with how it sounds, with how it looks. Fada King's on the intro for me. This picture that you're seeing on your screen, Fada King's made for me. The intro you saw at the beginning, Fada King's made for me. So everyone that's here has made this show better. Just by being here, by suggesting stuff. I'm not even trying to bloviate. I'm not trying to... I don't want to sound gay. I'm just saying I'm very happy with how everything's turned out. So that's going to do it for the Spooky Sunday. Now, I did promise we will do a little Q&A, so you don't have to send a donation in or anything like that, but if you have a question, make sure you @ me in the chat so I can see it. You can make it related to this topic or another topic. Try not to make it on the one topic, though. We've beaten that dead horse, and it's literally dead. And we've beaten the dead horse so much we can't beat it anymore. DX says, I found your channel because of the situation. I'm definitely checking out your future content. Yeah, we do so much stuff here. They were such a small part of what we did, but I'm glad I did it because it exposed it to a lot of other people that needed to see what was going on. Now, also, let me grab my pen real quick, guys. Now, if you send in a PayPal donation, it puts your name on there, so I don't read those on the air because it's different than your screen name, and I don't want to put your name out like there. So anyone that donated privately through PayPal, I very much appreciate it. I have seen them. It's really appreciated. Anybody that donated through Streamlabs, highly appreciated as well. If anybody wants to do that, feel free. Eagle Eye says we should look into what happened to Betsy McGee from the channel Conspiracy Theorista. I'm not familiar with it, but thank you. Now, we're doing questions, and we're also going to do the topics for the next vote. So if anybody's not familiar, every week I think up 3 topics, or I ask people, just tell me what topics you think for Spooky Sunday. We pick 3 of them, and then we put it on a poll on Twitter, and the poll ends on Friday, and then I choose one of those. BC says, I want to hear a deep dive on alleged trips to the moon. There's a lot of stuff on that topic. Moon landing can be a topic that we do. Nasim says, change your PayPal name to business name. That's all in the works. I'm taking care of the PayPal stuff tomorrow. Thank you. Have you considered Hyperborea, Anunnaki? Well, this is what we're doing right now. We're going to go in the chat, and everybody can give their suggestions, and we'll pick 3 of them. So right now, off the top of my head, I have moon landing, Anunnaki, and Tartaria as the 3. Feta King says Atlantis. I think Atlantis is good too. Salem witch trials. So I got to write these down because I'm a boomer. So I got Salem, Atlantis, and I know this is gay that we're writing it down and shit like that. Glitchmod says the JQ. That's for every other day of the week. Tesla secret projects. So we have Salem, Atlantis, moon landing. Let's see here. Atlantis is definitely going to be on the list. That seems to be getting a lot of attention. Anunnaki. Okay, so I think we have it. It's going to be, and I'll make this poll on Twitter and I'll share it out. And L, yes, I did see that you asked for the Discord. I don't have it pulled up right now. Atlantis, Anunnaki, and Tartaria. That's the 3. Atlantis, Anunnaki, and Tartaria. That'll be the 3 that we have to choose from. And all the other ones, there is a Spooky Sunday folder on Discord. Just add them in there, and they'll become part of the next vote. You know what I mean? This show is going to be coming every week, guys. So if we don't get to one, and it's not the topic that you like, the next week we're going to have another. Someone says more Tartaria. It's going to be on the list, so you have to vote for it. Someone says, fine, we can do Tesla next week. LOL. That's funny. Nibiru. I think Nibiru would be part of Anunnaki, to be honest with you. Floating cities. I keep forgetting floating cities. I'm writing it down right now so I don't forget the next vote. Floating cities in the sky is a good one. Project Bluebeam. We could get into. Guys, there's never-ending topics on this stuff. That's what makes this show so great. Papal bloodlines, Dracula, I see. Jurassic Park, could it happen? Probably. Probably did happen. Who knows what happened back then? I am a person that I do think these creatures roamed the earth at one point. I think the time that they tell us is wrong, but I'm not a nukes are fake, dinos are fake kind of guy. Moon floods is funny. Someone said Epstein. Yeah, we did a 30-part series that half of my videos got wiped out from. I probably did some of the most work on Epstein, and it's how a lot of people found my channel. I actually got booted for some of the connections of what I was talking when I was saying early on about his Mossad connections and having people like Gabe Hoffman and Mike Cernovich tell me that I was a kook and that I was a moron and that I was being anti-Semitic. Well, Mike Cernovich was actually being a proxy for Alan Dershowitz and shaming victims. I was actually going out and doing research. So, don't listen to a guy like Mike Cernovich who literally pled down from a rape to a battery charge. That's not the kind of human being you want to follow for information. All right. So if there's any questions, I will answer them. Underground tunnels, yep, that can be a future one. Jack the Ripper, yeah, that gets more into the spooky realm. But it's called Spooky Sundays, but it literally is just weird, mysterious, conspiratorial, and spooky. That's basically what we're doing here. I think Salem Witch Trials is a great one. I really do. Yeah, Andy, Mike Cernovich telling anyone else that they're a kook, that's rich. He actually called me an anti-Semite. Elle said, Davey Crocko, my first channel got wiped right under 10K subs. Yep. How did the ice get on Antarctica? I'm going to assume it's weather related. Jack the Ripper is fascinating, and the theories of finding out who he is. Feta Kings has the best question. Can we get Kurgan as a guest, please? Invitations out there. You guys know I'll talk to anybody. Literally, people gave me shit yesterday. Let me see if I can pull this up. If we start buffering, we're at the end of the show anyways, so it's all good. But did you guys see people giving me shit because I was... what did I do? I was on dLive yesterday, and I'm only subbed to like probably 15 or 20 people, so I see whoever's streaming, and I usually go by and just say, hey, what's up? How you doing? Like, support other people that are streaming, man. Ooh, sorry, I got sidetracked. Woodward TV just put a video of what you need to know about the state of Jupiter. Kind of related. We did the Saturn video earlier in the week. A lot of weird. Yeah, you guys can see what I listened to. Ooh, Andy's got a new. I'm gonna play this, Andy. Do you mind? I haven't watched it yet because I just got home and started my stream. Do you mind if I play your thing? Blues Doll's got a new video. Oh man, guys, there's so many new videos out. Just think what Blues Doll can do with Dr. Crocko, Preacher Royce, Merch Noir. I'm sure there's gonna be a good video coming. Blues Doll is amazing. Glitch says, hey man, I'm about to head out. See you in 2 months, you wide nose having, breathing all the white man's oxygen Jew. Glitchmod is leaving us for 2 months. What will we do without him? Don't die in battle, sir. Don't start any wars out there. And protect the Aryan race, Glitch. Protect the Aryan race. Sacrifice your life for the Aryan race, sir. In all honesty, Glitchmod, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. We're literally going to take your wrench as soon as you leave and give it to the gayest person possible. See you later, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, buddy. Thanks for stopping back on the channel, and hopefully see you in 2 months, and hopefully the channel's here when you come back. And find my fucking Twitter already. Andy has a new video. It's called The Dark Stream with Vox Day, except shorter. And it's literally right next to, if you guys see on my screen. Oh, fuck. Guys, I might have just fucked up the whole stream. I do that all the time. Hopefully we don't buffer out. I just clicked a button that could fuck up everything. I nuked it.
Welcome to the Dark Stream, Vox Day. So this was not exactly a surprise. And so... I should probably turn this off, huh? But I want to let you know about a few things. First, ankle biting. There is now and we are going to get to the bottom of this. It's going to be, oh, proof must be required. And so when you look at what is happening, it's going to be, something that, oh, Vox isn't Mensa. Again, it sounds fake. You know, and you know that's you know, so this is
literally says nothing.
You know,
I love it.
this is just
eye rubbing intensifies.
a situation that you don't know what you're doing. Dun 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 dun. I mean, you know, slowly. You know, and so
you know,
you know,
you know,
and
you know,
let's see here.
Fucking Andy, man. The editing skills are on point. Oh fuck, what the hell happened here? That was weird. Okay. Like I said, we might start buffering out, you know. What you fail to realize. But yeah, let me try to pull this up, you know. I can already tell it's buffering. So we made it to the end. We did it. But I think I opened iMovie, which literally fucks